Welcome to the How to Enter Student Responses in the Response Entry System (RE) for the State of Texas Assessments of Academic Readiness (STAAR) training video. This training will review how designated testing personnel can use RE to enter and submit data from a State of Texas Assessments of Academic Readiness (STAAR) paper test administration. We will also review how a student response should be entered for each item type. We will now review some general information about RE. Remember that RE must be used to enter and submit student responses for all STAAR paper test administrations. This includes paper versions of regular print, large print, Spanish, embedded supports, and Braille. Students record their responses in their test booklets, and authorized district testing personnel enter the responses into RE. Designated testing personnel must be properly trained and sign an oath of test security and confidentiality. This includes specific information related to entering student responses into RE. Remember that tampering with, adjusting, or changing student responses in any way is strictly prohibited and constitutes a serious testing violation. In addition, authorized staff members will be viewing secure test content, discussing, scoring, duplicating, recording, or electronically capturing secure test content is prohibited and is also a serious testing violation. All student responses must be entered and submitted in RE by 11:59 p.m. CT on the last day of each subject area testing window. Otherwise, they will not be scored or reported. Districts should reserve the last 2 to 3 days of each subject area testing window for RE submissions. TEA highly recommends that district coordinators plan to test during the first week of each content area testing window to ensure that all students have an opportunity to test in case of technical, weather, or emergency issues, and to allow for makeup testing. Please refer to the Response Entry System RE Overview Training module for specific information on logging into and navigating RE. We will now review how to enter student responses in RE for each item type. When entering student responses, the response must be entered exactly as it appears in the test booklet. Student responses may not be changed in any way, and a student's response should never be interpreted or inferred. You should leave the item blank in RE if you are unable to determine a student's response or if the student leaves the question unanswered. Please refer to the directions for entering student responses in RE page in the district and campus coordinator resources. For multiple choice questions, students must select the best answer from a set of 4 answer options. In this example, the student marked C. In RE, select answer choice C. If a student marked more than one answer, the question must be left blank in RE. For multi-select questions, students must select more than one correct answer from a set of possible answers. The directions included with the question indicate how many answers the student should select. In this example, students should mark 2 out of the 5 possible answer choices. In RE, select the 2 answer choices that the student marked. RE will allow the authorized staff member to enter only the target number of answers asked for in the question directions. If a student marked only one answer, only that answer must be selected in RE. If a student marked more than 2 answers, the question must be left blank in RE. For hot text questions, students cite evidence by selecting specific text in a sentence, paragraph, or passage. Students indicate their answers by marking the bubble or bubbles that correspond with the text they want to select. In this example, students indicate their answers by marking 1 out of the 4 bubbles available. In RE, hot text question answer choices are indicated as green highlighted text. Select the green highlighted text that matches the student's selected answer choice. Once selected, the highlight changes to purple. If a student marked only one answer, only that answer must be selected in RE. If a student marked more than one answer, the question must be left blank in RE. For hotspot questions, students respond by selecting one or more specific areas of a graphic. Students indicate their answers by marking the bubble or bubbles that correspond with the area they want to select. In this example, the student marked 2 out of the 6 bubbles available. In RE, locate the corresponding circles and select them. If a student marked more than 2 answers, the question must be left blank in RE. For multi-part questions, students respond to a two-part question where parts A and B are scored separately. In many cases, Part B asks the students to give evidence or explain their thinking for their answer to Part A. In this example, students mark their answers for Part A and Part B. In RE, select the same answers students indicated. If a student marked more than one answer for Part A or Part B, leave that part blank in RE. For inline choice questions, students select the best answer from a set of options. In this example, students indicate their answer in the first box and then in the second box. In RE, use the drop-down menus to select the answers that a student indicated in his or her test booklet. If a student marked more than one answer in a box, leave that part blank in RE. For drag-and-drop questions, students evaluate a given number of options and select which option belongs in a specific area. Students indicate their answers by marking the bubble or bubbles that corresponds with what belongs in the box. In this example, students mark their answers in the three boxes to indicate which text belongs in each box. In RE, first locate the text the student selected and then drag it to a blank box. If a student marked more than one answer in a box, leave that part blank in RE. For match table grid questions, students match statements or objects to different categories presented in a table grid. In this example, students indicate their answers by marking a bubble in each row of the table. In RE, select the corresponding boxes in the table. If a student marked more than one answer for a specific part, leave that part blank in RE. For short constructed response questions, students write a brief explanation to demonstrate their understanding of the content. Students write their responses on the blank lines provided with the question. In RE, type the student's response in the text box provided. Enter exactly what the student wrote on the lines in the test booklet, including any errors in punctuation, capitalization, spelling, grammar, and usage. If what the student wrote is indecipherable, skip that part of the student's response in RE. If what the student wrote does not fit in the text box in RE, enter as much as possible. For extended constructed response questions, students write an in-depth response to demonstrate their understanding of the content. Students write their responses on the blank lines provided with the question. In RE, type the student's response in the text box provided. Enter exactly what the student wrote on the lines in the test booklet, including any errors in punctuation, capitalization, spelling, grammar, and usage. If what the student wrote is indecipherable, skip that part of the student's response in RE. If what the student wrote does not fit in the text box in RE, enter as much as possible. For equation editor questions, students write a mathematical response in the form of a fraction, expression, equation, or inequality. Students write their responses in the box provided with the question. In this example, the student wrote 300 in the box provided with the question. In RE, either type the student's answer or use the equation editor to enter the answer. Enter exactly what the student wrote in the box in the test booklet. If what the student wrote is indecipherable, skip that part of the student's response in RE. If the student's response includes words, pictures, or something other than a mathematical response, leave the question blank in RE. Educators and technology staff may contact Texas Testing Support at 833-601-8821, at texastestingsupport@cambiumassessment.com, or by using the chat feature located on the Texas Assessment Program website. This concludes the How to Enter Student Responses in the Response Entry System, RE, training video. You may review the contents of this video by using the controls on your player.